Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the FantasyPros Football Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Harris. With me is Mike Tagliere, and it is awards show time. I mean, Tags, this is as excited as I've maybe ever seen you. Like, you couldn't stop gushing last night thinking about all your awards. Are you ready to do this?
I am ready to do this. This is like, I've been saying it's one of my favorite shows of the year. It's probably because I'm not writing the primer. It's probably because I'm able to sit back and just like look at some other things. I'm actually working on some stuff for next year, which is really cool. I'm doing some bold predictions. I'm working on some perfect draft stuff. But it's, I don't know. I love music. I love sports. I love football, obviously. So this is like tying everything together. And honestly, one of the best episodes of The Office of all time are when they have the Dundies. Yes. So this is like the Dundies of FantasyPros, and I don't really know what to call that, but it's one of my favorite days of the year.
Yeah, I legitimately find someone who looks at you in the way Tags looks at this show, because he has been so excited last night. Now, it's just me and Tags. Now, I will tell you that Yates is not on the show because he was away for the holidays and he is driving back, and we wanted to get this to you, but he did give us an honorary award to give out, and when you hear what this award is, you will understand the real reason that Yates is not on this show. It's because Yates, I don't think, fully gets what you're supposed to be doing with this show, considering he chose an award based on a Celine Dion song. So,
and he also, on top of that, he also doesn't watch anything like outside of Friends. Like, he watches Friends on rerun like 20 times a year, and I don't know how he does it. And I know he's going to give us crap because he's like, you guys are talking crap again behind my back. No, we're talking about you because we know you're going to listen, Yates, and we're saying this to start watching other shows and start listening to other music outside of Hamilton and start watching shows outside of Friends. That's what
also,
you need to do.
Yates, I don't think behind your back means what you think it means when you say it to 100,000 people, which you know you're going to be listening. That's not behind your back. That's just when you're not there. But we are telling you, you know, we love you, Yates. You're the man. But yeah, I think it's time to branch out a little bit, and you know, I'll have a list of movies for you, but we'll get to our awards in a second. Before I do, it is December 28th as we record this. You have a few more days to enter our contest, which is a signed James Robinson helmet, and my guess is James Robinson is going to be mentioned later on this show. All you need to do is leave a review for the show on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, and I will remind you, reviews really help us out. We think about the reviews, we read the reviews, they mean a lot to us. So take your time. If you have not yet, please leave a review. And if you do, go to fantasypros.com/contest to make sure that you are entered for the giveaway. All right, Tags, we have been given no parameters for these awards whatsoever. You and I have not talked about the awards other than at the end, we're going to give out the very standard sort of waiver wire, darling award, MVP award, rookie of the year award. We'll give those out, and maybe we'll overlap. But we have not discussed the parameters of these awards. We basically get to do whatever we want. So, Tags, your theme, please, for your 2020 Fantasy Football Awards show.
It's songs. I mean, song titles. I'm a huge music nut, and anybody that's around me that knows me in life, they know that music plays like a huge part. And I just love going, like, even doing the research for this show was so fun because I get to go back and I'm like, oh, I haven't heard that song in a long time, because I legit looked through thousands of song titles to try and figure out which ones I wanted to use for this. And I even told Gates, I was like, if you're back for this show for whatever reason, I have song ideas. And yes. Dan yelled at him basically.
I did.
Don't steal Tag's ideas.
No, it's creativity is what we do here. And for that, I'm going with the thing that is probably most near and dear to my heart. And that's 80s movies, characters. Now, I will admit that one of my characters, it's not technically 80s, it's 90s, but it was just too appropriate. But that's what I do. But yeah, I wasn't going to let Yates come in here and list songs that he didn't know because you gave him it. Now, I don't know how many awards. I've got 10. I think Tags has 80 awards ready to go, because if you mention that he can do anything with songs, he's ready to go. I will let him do a couple of extra going on at the end. So before, hold on one sec, guys. All right. So, but that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing it however we want. Now, I will, before we get going, Tags, I'm just going to give out Yates' award. Is that okay?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's kick it off.
One. Yates is going to kick us off, so we're going to set the bar real low here with the My Heart Will Go On award, and it's going to go to Jonnu Smith. So I get I get where Yates is coming from right now, okay? And it's appropriate, realistically, because Yates loved Jonnu Smith in the way I love my dog. I get it. He's a very strong connection to him. Doesn't matter. He came through yesterday, had the touchdown, but legitimately, Yates can do whatever he wants, and he chooses a Celine Dion song. I don't know, Tags. Any commentary with this one?
Not necessarily. I think everybody can judge by. I mean, my heart will go on. It kind of makes sense in terms of how Yates felt about Jonnu Smith and basically everything that he was going into. The start of the year, I remember Yates every single week on Twitter, Jonnu Smith, Jonnu Smith. And then it's like all of a sudden things started dying down and Yates started getting a little more quiet. And, his heart will go on. But in the end, I think it came back to the idea that this Titans offense had just limited volume to it, that they were going to be a run-first team, that they don't run a whole lot of plays. And it goes back to, Dan, by the way, our argument this preseason on where A.J. Brown would finish as a fantasy wide receiver. And I hate to break it to you, but my number wide receiver 17 ranking is exactly where he's at right now.
Boo. Whatever, man. All right. He's way better.
It's all good.
He's winning an award from me. Don't you worry, AJ Brown. Don't if you listen to this, which I know he is a huge fan of the podcast, don't let Tag sort of, besmirch how outstanding your season was here. As for Yates, Tags, that's a lot of analysis. My analysis really focuses on the fact that Yates had one award to give out and he did a Celine Dion song. So really it doesn't matter. Anything else is just kind of superfluous at this point for me. But why don't we get into it? You're excited to go, Tags. Why don't you give me your top award here?
You're gonna hear me go through a lot of different genres of music too, because that's one thing that I think I pride myself on is that I'm diverse in that. So let's start with Bob Dylan is the presenter of this award. It's going to be called "The Times They Are a Changin'," and we're going to give that to Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley walking in and being the number one wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons this year, and there's a changing of the guard. Like last year, people talked about Chris Godwin potentially taking over from Mike Evans, and this year, Calvin Ridley was that darling pick. He was the guy that people wanted to see him kind of take that number one role, and he did as the year went on. And honestly, I think going into next year's fantasy drafts, with Julio Jones getting up there in age a little bit, Calvin Ridley coming into his own, I believe that the times are changing, and Calvin Ridley is the new number one in Atlanta.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we talked about it on last night's show, Tags. He's going to be a top 5 wide receiver. You think even a borderline first rounder, right?
Yeah, I think you could start talking about him the tail end of the first round. But for me, I'm not going to draft him there. And I mean, this is going to come out in articles throughout the offseason. But I basically just started going through this article based on the perfect draft. And if you were to go back and say, I'm going to stick to ADP and look at the 12 players that were selected in each and every single round, I don't know if you can. I don't think you can pass on running back in the first round right now. I just don't. I don't. So Calvin Ridley, is he worthy of an early second round pick? Absolutely.
Yep, I'm full on always heavy running back early on, but I like it. I also, Tags, I think it's time, you and I have a very close relationship, okay? And I don't want you to think less of me, and maybe I've told you about this
I don't know
before.
if I can. I don't know if that's possible.
There it is. The quick-witted sort of, barb is exactly what I like on this show. But I'm not a huge music guy. And it's not that I don't like music. It's just I feel like, Sherlock Holmes always had this theory that you just have limited brain power. So Sherlock Holmes knew nothing about the solar system because it didn't really do him any good. And Tags, that my brain is filled with absolutely useless knowledge that goes on, and there just wasn't a ton of room for music. So I'm very glad that you named Bob Dylan, because again, I'm old and I the times they are changing, and we were watching this movie Soul, new on Disney Plus, with the kids, and one of the old, I forget what song it was, but a Bob Dylan song came on and I got very excited, and you've named a song that I know and I like, so
nice.
That probably is not going to be the theme here, but
no,
I'm very excited for it. So I'm going to start with my first award, where any great, awards show about 80s characters begins, and that's with the Rocky Balboa Award, and that's going to go to Aaron Rodgers. Now, technically, Rocky could be considered a 70s character, right? Because the original Rocky, of course, as everyone knows, winner, 1976, Best Picture, obviously. So this is more like the Rocky IV Rocky Balboa Award, which definitely is 80s. Well, why is that for Aaron Rodgers? Well, let's talk about Rocky by the time he reaches Rocky IV, right? He's older. He's no longer the champion. He doesn't quite have the same skill. That's obviously Rodgers getting a little long in the tooth here. He is counted out. Nobody thinks he can be on top again. No more so than when Adrian says, you've seen him. You know how strong he is. You can't win. Which, by the way, is the single harshest thing that any character in any movie has ever said at any point. That's Rodgers. He was like barely drafted at this point, right? Maybe if he was, it was a late round pick. He has given absolutely nothing that would allow him to be successful. Legitimately, Rocky, you want to train? Go climb up this here mountain, okay? Go lift a big giant pile of rocks. Go lift your family members and your trainer up in a wheelbarrow to train. Meanwhile, your opponents are getting state-of-the-art training with like 80 trainers going on. That's Rodgers. The Packers did absolutely nothing to help him whatsoever be successful in this draft. It was all on him. And finally, he is fighting an invincible opponent that he is going to overcome, and that is Aaron Rodgers, who, as we talked about last night, Tags, is going to win the MVP award. Instead of Patrick Mahomes, the invincible one, he's going to win the MVP. Aaron Rodgers, he wins the Rocky Balboa award. And again, Rocky IV, but he wins the Rocky IV Rocky Balboa award. Any problems with that, Tags?
That is a fantastic analogy. I love that award.
He really is, man. I mean, legitimately, and it was so much so what really got me is the fact that Rocky, and it's by his own accord, he wants to fight in Russia. He wants to live in a log cabin that apparently doesn't really have heat. He wants to train by running up mountains.
Yeah.
But that's legitimately what Aaron Rodgers had this year. You were given absolutely nothing to help you succeed. While everybody else is given, Patrick Mahomes gets Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you know what I mean? Drew Brees gets offensive line help. Everybody got everything except Aaron Rodgers. So, Aaron Rodgers, you are the winner of the Rocky Balboa from Rocky IV award. Next
awesome.
Award, Tags. Go for it.
Love it. This one is a bit of an insider award, and if you've been listening to the podcast all year, you'll get it. If you didn't, I'm sorry. But this award comes from Rihanna's song, Unfaithful. Unfaithful award goes to Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones is someone that you never, ever know if you can trust on a weekly basis. And will that change in 2021? I can't say for certain because Keyshawn Vaughn is someone they drafted, obviously, in the third round. Leonard Fournette was on a one-year deal. I don't anticipate him getting back. So Ronald Jones, he wins the Unfaithful award. I don't really have to explain this one too much. It's just a player that you cannot trust on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I think that's right. Although, I was wondering, Tags, because at the end, he did kind of get into that circle of trust, until, of course, he had to miss a few games. But in the end, he sort of went past the point where you can trust him. Don't you think that?
I do, too, at a certain extent. And I think we saw Bruce Arians unwilling to trust Keyshawn Vaughn throughout the year. So I do believe that going into 2021, if they don't add another running back and that they lose Fournette, I would be willing to say Ronald Jones is going to be a top 20 running back with top 12 upside.
I like it. You're also naming another artist and another song with which I am familiar. So we're already winning on this one. I'm going to give my next award, and I think it's my one award that's not an 80s movie, but it hit too perfectly for me. And that is Rudy Rudiger, who's a real person, of course, but from the classic movie Rudy, which is a 90s movie. But that's got to be James Robinson, who can win like 17 awards, frankly, if I was going to go that route. But we know Rudy. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the strongest guy. He cared about nothing else other than being the best he can, and against all odds, he was successful. James Robinson is 5'9". He was undrafted. Nobody knew who he was from a fantasy standpoint before the season started. All he has done is put up one of the strongest rookie seasons for any rookie running back of all time. For weeks 1 through 15, he obviously missed week 16. He was the 4th ranked running back in half PPR formats. When I think of his season tags, I want to do that very awkward groundskeeper clap as he walks away, at the end of that movie where he's really excited, where he's kind of barely slapping his hands. Rock, I don't know the actor's name. Rock, is all I know him from. I think his name was Future in the movie, but I can't remember it well. But so, again, not an 80s character. I think it's my lone 90s character, but he's Rudy Rudiger, man. I mean, it's a guy who, against all odds, is basically one of the most successful stories that he can be. So James Robinson, my Rudy Rudiger award from the movie Rudy.
Well, here's a fun fact. That is like legit the next award that I have. It is called the Against All Odds Award. It's presented by Phil Collins.
Of course.
And that is going to go to James Robinson. You're 100% correct in this one. The odds were stacked against him. He came in, he was not even a guarantee to make the roster. And then all of a sudden, it's like Raquel Armstead is out for the year. Then it's like Leonard Fournette gets cut. And Chris Thompson, what's he going to do? And Devine Zigbo. And all these things happened. You have a crappy offensive line. You have a bad quarterback situation. You have a bad football team. All of these play into legit every single odd that you can come up with. They were all against James Robinson. So for him to finish as the number 4 running back in fantasy football, I mean, I think Against All Odds is the best award that he could receive.
That's great. That's a great one, Tags. Do you like Phil Collins, Tags?
I love Phil Collins.
All right. There's a great... Did you ever watch 30 Rock, Tags?
No.
Okay. There's a great line in it where Tracy Morgan, who plays a character named Tracy Jordan, who's basically Tracy Morgan in that sort of... You know, same exact sort of person. He's playing himself pretty much.
I don't think he could play any other role.
And he says to Alec Baldwin's character, he goes, "Oh, you did a great job. I'm going to make you a mixtape. You like Phil Collins?" And Alec Baldwin responds, "I've got 2 ears and a heart, don't I?" And that's how I feel about Phil Collins, right?
That's
Anybody with 2 ears and a heart loves him against all odds. Perfect award. I'm going next, Tags, a little double award winner. Okay. Have you seen the movie Trading Places, Tags?
I have.
Okay. Great movie. One of my favorites. I watch it anytime when it's on. So it's really, we're doing characters. So it's kind of the Billy Ray Valentine and Louis Winthorpe award. And that's going to Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. Look, Louis Winthorpe, top-notch broker over at Duke and Duke. Billy Ray Valentine comes in and he shows kind of the natural ability. He when he knows how to wait on pork bellies. Then, of course, Billy Ray Valentine essentially takes over Winthorpe's life and becomes the big guy. And that's kind of what we had this year. Adam Thielen was the guy. Jefferson, as we talked about, Tax, he didn't even start for the first few games. Then Jefferson comes in. He becomes the guy. He takes over the role, the A1 role in that offense. And then, besides Dalvin Cook as the receiver. And then, like Trading Places, both guys wound up winning. Both guys wind up being incredibly successful together. That is Jefferson and Adam Thielen. We talked about the problems with Thielen, but the fact is that he did score all the touchdowns, which kept his value up. Both guys are basically wide receiver ones on the season. So the Trading Places award, where you had Justin Jefferson basically taking over the number one role, but in the end, they both wind up with successful sort of outcomes and seasons, that goes to Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson. I think to myself, how high is this guy going to go in drafts next year? I know we talked about it a little bit last time in the recap show, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, wow, what did he actually do? So if you look at once he joined the starting lineup as like a full-time player, it was week 3. Since week 3, his 16-game pace would be 91 receptions, 1,473 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Even including weeks, the first couple weeks of the season, Justin Jefferson finished with 275 more yards than Keenan Allen on 34 fewer targets.
Yep.
It's kind of ridiculous what he did in a run-first offense. And, knowing that this Vikings defense is shaky right now and they're seemingly going through a transition period, you're going to see this team pass a little bit more. So Justin Jefferson, he's up there in that conversation for a top 10 wide receiver to be drafted next year.
I do wonder, Tags, what you think about the fact, what if they do address the defense in this offseason? What if their defense does get stronger? Do you think the volume is going to be there to at least put both Jefferson and Adam Thielen as wide receivers that you can draft in the at least high-end wide receiver 2 range for both of them?
Well, Thielen is trending downward in his career. That's just happening. He's over 30 years old now. That's going to happen naturally, and we obviously saw Justin Jefferson kind of leapfrog him into the number one role in that team. And I think that's only going to grow because think about it. Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson did not have an offseason together. Again, Jefferson was on the COVID list for 2 weeks during their training camp, which lasted only a month. And that's why he didn't start right away. He wasn't playing a big role. And you saw legit week after week, it's just you see the confidence growing in the kid. You see the confidence in the team going to him. So it's this is a guy that we probably should view like we viewed Adam Thielen this year as a guy that's a lock for 130 targets despite it being a run-first offense. I like Justin Jefferson quite a bit, and he's only going to get better.
I'm so excited to see really what all the rookie wide receivers are going to be able to do next year. Because as we mentioned last night, they were able to have these consistently excellent seasons with no preseason or anything like that. Give them a year under their belt. Man, it is going to be exciting. Let's get to your 4th award, Tags. What do you got?
All right, this award is presented by NF. NF is one of my favorite artists. He's kind of weird. He doesn't do a lot of promoting or anything like that, but he's fantastic. The song is called No Excuses. The award is called No Excuses. And this one could have gone to a few different people, but I really felt it necessary to give an award to Amari Cooper for overcoming what he did with Dak Prescott going out of the lineup. You saw the inconsistencies around everybody else in the offense. You saw Dalton Schultz fall off. You saw Ezekiel Elliott fall into a running back that you didn't even have to start. You saw Michael Gallup obviously take a step forward at the end of the year, but he was someone that nobody wanted to rely on. CeeDee Lamb fell off the face of the earth once Dak Prescott went down. But Amari Cooper scored at least 12.5 PPR points in 12 of 15 games this year and still managed to finish as a top 15 wide receiver on the season. I think it's pretty remarkable what he did. So Amari Cooper wins the award for No Excuses.
Yeah, Cooper really did have a great season overall. And I hope that fantasy managers were still able to rely on him to the extent they survived their semifinal matchups, where he, of course, didn't have a great game against San Francisco, but he had a big game yesterday against Philadelphia with the 4 catches for 121 yards. Yeah, he had a great season, and I agree. I think that everybody was worried. For a while, Tags, once Dak Prescott went down, it really became Cooper as the only guy who in that offense who fantasy managers kind of felt they could rely on week after week. Now, eventually, CeeDee Lamb, of course, did well, and Michael Gallup late in the season. But yeah, a remarkably consistent season in what was a very inconsistent team. So we love Amari Cooper on this show, so I'm certainly not going to argue with that. For me, number 4, the Daniel Larusso Award. Look, it's a little. I love Cobra Kai. I'm actually still. I'm still finishing up. I have been slow playing it here, so finishing up. I'm finishing up season 2, so no spoilers here. But Karate Kid was always before Cobra Kai. I'm glad everybody's getting back into it, but Karate Kid was my movie. Absolutely love it. I legitimately, one of my favorite articles ever was written about, I can't remember who wrote it, but was written about Karate Kid as if it was like a newspaper article about his whole saga, and it was the most brilliant thing I've ever seen. But anyway, the winner of the Daniel LaRusso Award is, of course, my guy, Logan Thomas. Look, Daniel LaRusso is not your typical karate champion, all right? Maybe he's not quite the same athlete as all the other stars, gets off to a rough start, comes from New Jersey, living in Reseda. Maybe he doesn't have your typical training, okay? It's not your typical situation that leads to success, but in the end, he is the best around. Nothing is ever going to keep him down. That's Logan Thomas. Weeks 1 through 5, Thomas is the tight end 27 in half PPR formats. Weeks 6 through 16, tight end 3 tags. We talked about Thomas and the targets early on, and you said, I'm sure you recall, that they were bad targets. Well, you know what? The same could be said about bad training with waxing cars, all right, and sanding the floor and painting the house and painting the fence. Just because Thomas isn't getting the Patrick Mahomes or the Tom Brady or the Aaron Rodgers training doesn't make him less valuable. Logan Thomas gets the best of all the awards, the Daniel LaRusso Award. And I'll be honest, Tags, we talked about it so many times. Logan Thomas became my guy, right? It was anytime Logan Thomas did well, everybody went nuts. But I wasn't exactly ranking Logan Thomas as a top 5 option every single week or anything like that. But it is really great to see how well he did, especially as the season went on. So Logan Thomas, you are the winner of the Daniel LaRusso Award.
Now, you see, this one's surprising to me just because I didn't invite Logan Thomas to the ceremony. I didn't think that he would win an award. So, unfortunately, unless you sent out an invite, he didn't get one. So I'm sorry, Logan Thomas. But yes, it was a fantastic season. Obviously, finishing very, very, very strong, where I actually did rank him as a top 5 option. In week 16, I did like him. He overcame a lot of tough matchups down the stretch. I think he's probably deserving of some award. But again, he was just not someone that we had on our guest list because we had to limit it to a select few.
Okay, first of all, I'm the host of this show. I decide the guest list. And he is not only on the invite list, but you know what? He's taking your spot. Okay, so from now on, you're done. Logan Thomas is in. Welcome. He is definitely an award winner. Don't worry about it. And the Daniel LaRusso Award. There are a few better awards. Tags, go to number 5.
All right, Eminem is presenting the award Till I Collapse, and this is somebody that already won the award that Dan gave out. It was even a better award, the Rocky IV award. But these are 2 of the best awards that he can get. It's Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the guy saying basically, until I collapse, you're not going to take me out. You're not going to remove me from the fantasy football conversation. He fell this year. Now, he didn't fall as far as maybe Dan thought he did because I was looking at this stuff earlier today.
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers fell to the 8th, 9th round, that territory this year in fantasy drafts, and that's an average draft. When we do analyst drafts, he was falling into the 15th, 16th round a lot of times. But Aaron Rodgers fell to that round. He was the best pick in that round. And if you were going to go with the value-based drafting option, Aaron Rodgers would have been that guy this year. You would say, that's where I'm combining value with upside, because Aaron Rodgers was someone that you didn't need a streamer for. There wasn't up and down in his production. He had one game all year with fewer than 18.2 fantasy points, and he finishes the number 3 quarterback overall. You didn't have to pay premium draft prices. He's older. Who gives a crap? If he throws 2 touchdowns against the Bears in Week 17, which, by the way, Dan, the Packers have not locked up the top seed in the NFC because the Saints won and there was another team that won. I'm trying to remember right now, but they haven't locked up the top seed, so therefore they actually do have something to play for in Week 17. But if Rodgers throws 2 touchdowns in Week 17, he sets a single-season career high for him in touchdown passes.
Why did I think that they had said it? I guess, yeah, because the Seahawks won. I
Yes.
guess. And so if they went, oh, that's my bad on that one. I don't know why I thought.
Well, it's disappointing as a Bears fan. I was hoping they had nothing to play for, but they do.
Yeah, my bad on that one. I thought they'd locked it up. Well, great. Good. This is good because as you know.
No, it's not great.
Yeah, it's great. Tags, earn your way in, man. Come on. Let's go here, all right? Enough of this. Don't go from being the pessimistic Bears fan to being like, oh, man, I just wanted to get in so we could see. Nah, man, earn your way in. But you will get it. Will you get in if the Rams beat the Cardinals as well?
Yes. Well, yeah. But that's without Jared Goff, without two of their starting running backs. Yeah.
It's an uphill climb, but whatever. You're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah, look, we love Aaron Rodgers. And Tags, I was joking with you last night. Kudos to you because I feel like not you saw, but we talked about, I'm in this sportsbook league for the FSGA, and it was something where you were drafting prop bets for the most part, and you adamantly pushed that Aaron Rodgers at 25-1 MVP was one of the bets that we should take, which I did, and I think that's going to hit. I think he's going to win the MVP, and I mean, why did you think, out of curiosity, Tags, that this was a legitimate chance? There was nothing that suggested in this point, given that they didn't give him any help whatsoever, he didn't really even have a second receiving option, that Rodgers was going to be able to put up such a dynamic season. I mean, did you really expect? Were you drafting him in most of your fantasy leagues as a late-round quarterback?
If I went with a late-round quarterback, yes. And I honestly was pairing him with another quarterback, like an upside play, because I didn't feel like Aaron Rodgers was going to I didn't think he needed to set the fantasy world on fire to be considered an MVP. Because I think people were forgetting that he's still arguably the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, or most talented, I'll say. Tom Brady, obviously, he's the GOAT. In terms of accomplishments and what he's done in the NFL, there's no taking that away from him. But Aaron Rodgers, one of the most talented, and if he's not the greatest of all time, he's top 3. There's no questioning that. So to say a 25-1 odds for him winning the Super Bowl or winning the league MVP, I think it's crazy to put those odds against him like that. If it was like 5-1, it would have been like, yeah, that doesn't really make too much sense. You don't have much wiggle room. Right. But 25-1, it made too much sense.
Well, I love it, and I'm a huge fan of Rodgers as well. I'd love to see him win another Super Bowl here. For my number 5, we're going back to Rocky, but we're going to Rocky 3, Tags, because I mean, I could do a whole Rocky award show if we wanted to. I mean, we'll do that one day, and it'll be amazing. It's Thunderlips, the ultimate male, Hulk Hogan's iconic character from Rocky 3, and of course, that's DK Metcalf. I mean, it needs very little explanation. Thunderlips, we know what he is. He gets in that ring. Once that bell rings, he is a competitor. He is ready to go. He is not taking it easy on anybody. He has, of course, basically a perfect physical, a physique. He's ready to dominate. Out of the ring, perfectly nice guy. But once you step on that field, he is like an animal. He is ready to go. Full competition. You don't want any part of him. That is Metcalf. He is terrifying. He is dominant on that football field. He's also has the physique of basically a Greek god, as everyone knows. And so there is just, when he's off, he's perfectly nice guy. But when he's on, you want no part of him. Pretty simple explanation. A miraculous season here for Metcalf, who not only took that, wide receiver 1 role in Seattle, but I mean, dominated with it. So for me, it is Thunderlips, the ultimate male. The award goes to DK Metcalf.
I like it. I mean, DK Metcalf is kind of redonkulous in terms of what he went from as a project. I'm putting that in quotes because people considered him a very raw prospect. And now it's like he's a wide receiver that they're moving all over the formation. He's a guy that as a defense, you almost can't leave in one-on-one situations. Jalen Ramsey, he might be the one exception to that rule where he's like the lone shutdown corner that you try to avoid in fantasy matchups. But DK Metcalf, he might make an appearance later in the show.
Oh, good. All right. I look forward to that. But yeah, it really is. I mean, you think about him how people viewed him in the draft, and the only thing I ever think about is him and Pete Carroll taking off their shirts together and everything like that. But yeah, you thought of him as a project, and he's just an incredible talent. So great to see. Let's get to your number 6 award, I believe, Tags. Go ahead.
All right. So this one, it comes from the band I Prevail, which I dig them. The song is called Bow Down. The award for Bow Down goes to Dan's guy, A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown may not have finished as a top 12 wide receiver like Dan thought he would, but A.J. Brown is on a different level. He's a superior human being in terms of what he is physically and what he can do to defenses. He can take a slant that is supposed to get 2 yards after the catch and get tackled all the way to the house. And it's shown no way better than looking at NFL's next-gen stats. You look at it last year, he averaged 4.7 yards after the catch more than he should have, like on every single reception. That is ridiculous. It was head and shoulders above anybody else in the league. And you could say, well, there was a couple receptions that made that happen and yada, yada. Everybody has those, but A.J. Brown consistently made it happen this year. Or last year. This year, he was number 2 in that category in yards over expected after the catch, because A.J. Brown is simply a guy that you just don't want to tackle. And NFL defenders, if you do not come correctly to A.J. Brown, he is going to tell you just bow down to me, because that's where you're going to end up anyway. So A.J. Brown, the winner of the Bow Down Award.
Yeah, I love it. And again, this is, when we talked about this in the preseason tags, this is basically what it was. I was like, I get that, maybe certain of his quote-unquote efficiency metrics are going to go down, but they're still going to be well above average because of who he is. And they were. Yeah, he's an incredible talent. He's an award winner for me, and I'm just going to give him that one right now so we can just talk about it. A.J. Brown. You did. I'm glad the performance. I'll do a little spin on it, which is the John McClane Award, of course, Bruce Willis's.
That's not a Christmas movie, by the way.
Okay. You want to talk about it? Here's my problem with it. There is no way that I could consider that a Christmas movie.
Thank you.
There's no way. But here's the problem, Tags. How do I pronounce the word GIF? Tags. How do I pronounce the word?
I'm not even going to say it.
I pronounce it GIF, okay? It's GIF. And the reason that it's GIF is because the guy who created it says it's GIF. That's what it is. The screenwriter for Die Hard says it's a Christmas movie. What are we supposed to do about that?
They reference Christmas like 3 times in the entire movie. And they play a Christmas song at the end, so therefore it's a Christmas. No, it's
not. All right. You want it. I mean, we don't have to go down this road. But in the end, I mean, it's true. He does. And I agree. It's not a Christmas movie. The only reason he's able to defeat, Hans Gruber is because they've got Christmas decorations that he's able to sort of pin it to his back, right? So there's your Christmas theme. But I agree. Not a Christmas movie. But it is an A.J. Brown movie because he wins the John McClane Award. Look, tough as nails. You think you finally got him. You've got him cornered. There's no way out. He finds a way out. He can barely walk because of all the glass that they shot up and everything like that. He should not be able to keep going, but he does. That is A.J. Brown, because at least once every single game for like the last 8 weeks, you look like you were like, oh no, this is it. This is it. I think he tore his ACL, or the ankle injury is up. And, you and I and Yates have, our private Slack message where during football Sundays, we're just kind of messaging each other when something notable happens or something like that. And there's like 6 instances of Yates messaging, oh no, A.J. Brown, or something like that. And legitimately, the guy misses a play and then he comes back in. You can't get rid of him for all the reasons you talked about, from performance-wise, which I love it. But in terms of just pure toughness, the pure ability to be like, all right, we've got him now. He's done. This is it. Can't possibly go on. And then he's just going to come out and he's going to bust out a 60-yard touchdown catch and run. You win. A.J. Brown, double award winner. A.J. Brown, the John McClane Award. So.
Yeah, and to be fair, A.J. Brown was the only wide receiver who had fewer than 100 targets and finished as a top 24 wide receiver. That's it. That's crazy.
And he missed games early in the year. Don't forget that. I mean, I can't be held responsible.
A lot of wide
for
receivers in this have missed a game or two here and there. So it's that's why if you go on a point per game basis, I will tell you he finished as the number 12 wide receiver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go. All right,
so there you go.
All right, get to your next one, Tex.
All right, this one is Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra, I think everybody knows the song My Way. Sure. And this award for My Way is going to go to Travis Kelce. This is one of the most powerful awards I think I could ever give, because My Way is just a song about doing things your own way, and he is his own person. He is on another level. He's on another planet. He's doing things his way. He doesn't care what everybody else at the tight end position is doing, because if you look at it, he scored ridiculous. It's actually ridiculous. 61 more PPR points than the next closest tight end. Yep. Okay, that's obviously massive. That's like 3 games for Travis Kelce. It's like 6 games for every other tight end.
Yeah.
But the number 3 tight end was 143 PPR points away from him. Yep. He is doing things that no tight end has ever done. He set the record. I cannot stress how important this is. Like, the NFL has been going on for a long time, guys. A long time. And he set the record for all-time yardage with a full game still to play. And I don't know if he's going to play in that game or not, but I really hope he does, because I want to see him extend this record to make it even that much tougher for everybody else that tries to come after it, because, geez. And the best part about it is that Kelce got even better as the year went on. I mean, from week 13 through week 16, that's a 4-week sample size. He scored 100.8 PPR points. If you just counted the last 4 weeks that he played, he would still be a top 20 tight end.
That's an awesome, stat for the last 4 weeks. I love it. He wins an actual award for me, not one of these funny awards, but 17.4 half PPR points per game. That, from a tight end, is just nonsense. Nonsense. It would make him the third highest wide receiver behind only Devante Adams and Tyreek Hill. Nonsense what he did at this position. And really, given how much time and energy we spend, I mean, I understand George Kittle, of course, got injured. So, people who spent a high pick on him, fine. But other than Darren Waller, yeah, you were pretty much just trying to find the answer. And of course, Logan Thomas, you were trying to find the answer to whatever you could this year. And Kelsey was out there as a cheat code at this position. Yes. So I love it. He's the best. And I also love tags. I mean, these music awards, you're running the gamut here. I mean, you're not sticking to one genre, right?
No.
I love it.
I love so many different ones. That's why I said I went through thousands of songs, man. I love music.
Oh, man. I love it. All right. My next award is the Josh Baskin Award. Josh Baskin, of course, Tom Hanks' character from the movie Big, where the Zoltar machine turns him from a 13-year-old boy into a 30-year-old man. And that's going to go to Derrick Henry. Watching Derrick Henry, I'm constantly reminded of the montage in that one where he's bought the loft, or he's rented out the loft, and he's writing a letter to his mom, and he's saying what he's been doing, and they just keep showing all the fun things that he's doing. And one thing he's doing is playing with his friend Billy on his knees, playing basketball, blocking shots, dunking and doing behind the back, all this crazy stuff, because he's just so superior to what sort of his age and his peers sort of are doing. Football players are the elite of the elite athlete. You should not be able to probably even one time take a stiff arm and send dudes like 10 yards flying down the field. And Derrick Henry does that every game, every single game. You heard Collinsworth actually talking about it last night, is that with AJ, when people play, they want to play well, football players, but what they worry about with Derrick Henry is just being embarrassed. Being embarrassed and, being on a poster, being like flown in the air. It actually looks like he is sort of, just from another thing, with the Josh Baskin playing with his friends, but actually being a grown-up as compared to little kids. So for me, Derrick Henry, another phenomenal season by the guy. He wins the Josh Baskin Award.
I like it, man. I mean, it's so true. Like when you started talking about the whole basketball scene, I started dying laughing because I haven't seen the movie Big in a while, but I remember that scene.
Right.
I remember it it's funny how you mentioned that, because I think defenders have to worry about that, right? Like when you go in a game against Derrick Henry, like if I don't come correct to this dude, like I'm going to wind up on a highlight reel, and he's going to like legit disrespect me and take my soul with him.
Legitimately, like I get it. He's just like, you don't see that all the time. You occasionally see like a great stiff arm, right? Legitimately, once every other game, he sends somebody flying out, and you should just not be able to do that. So it really does look like he's playing on an entirely different level than everybody else. And it's been great to see him develop from sort of this guy that we all had question marks about, that would have these big runs late in the season. We're like, I don't know what we're going to do, to now just a completely dominant force. All right, Tags, go ahead. Next award.
You know what's funny is that this next award that I'm going to give out, Derrick Henry was probably in line to get it until Week 16 came. All right, this award is presented by Chevelle, a rock band, and the award's called The Clincher. If you didn't have Alvin Kamara on your team, I don't know if you won that fantasy championship. If you overcame Alvin Kamara, I mean, kudos to you.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara was the clincher. 6 touchdowns in a game. Come on. I mean, you just watched it happen one after another, and you're just like, and then we almost get mad because Taysom Hill stole one of them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it could have been 7 rushing touchdowns, but regardless, the clincher, I think this one explains itself.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it was like, because I was only had Kamara only factored in. Well, he factored into 2, but realistically, you're going up against him, and to have this game, that first game, on the Thursday night games, usually, obviously this was a Friday night game, but you have those, you're going up against somebody, or you have somebody, you're just like, just don't decide the matchup, right? Don't decide my matchup so that I'm going into Sunday, I'm looking at this. But yeah, that's just, that's like a once in every season, once in every 2 seasons type of performance. And yeah, if you rostered him and you didn't win your fantasy championship, I'm so sorry, because you probably had counted your winnings and taken the championship home for granted. But yeah, needs no explanation. I'll get to my next one, and that is the Roger Murtaugh Award. That is Danny Glover's character from Lethal Weapon. Good cop, still one of the best, but his patented line, I'm getting too old for this stuff, which I will PG-13 it, because that's what we are in this show. It's none other than Tom Brady. It's not just his age, it's the fact that he's still very good, not quite his peak, but still very, very good. But he just tags to me doesn't look like he's enjoying it anymore. You can disagree, I don't know, but it kind of looks like unless he's playing the Lions and he's able to do whatever he wants, it kind of looks like this is more trouble than it's worth to him at this point, as opposed to what I think he used to look like. This season looks like it's been a struggle. So it's like Murtaugh, like he kind of knows he should be done. Like, you're 43. It's time. It's time to be done. He kind of knows it. But this is all he knows. This is his entire life. So Tom Brady still getting it done. Still one of the top cops on the force. But I think even he knows he's getting a little too old for this stuff.
I think that's a great award. I didn't really think of awards in that way. I always thought of like celebratory, but this one is an award that probably should be given out. Now I come to think of it, there is actually an award that I have that's a negative one. So I really should have thought that.
Well, it's not even negative. I mean, it's a fact of life. The bottom line is that, Tom Brady and look, Roger Murtaugh, still a great cop, man. Way to go. You are too old for this, but you're still getting it done. That's like Tom Brady, but at this point, kind of seems like, yeah, man. The thing is, let me ask you something, Tex. If they win a Super Bowl, okay, if the Bucs win a Super Bowl, do you think Brady would retire?
No, I think he means it. I think that he wants to play for as long as his body will allow him to. I really do.
Yeah, that's what I think too. And but it doesn't. That's the thing. It's like, this is what he knows, and I get it. I mean, you think about it, Tags. Like, what would you do if you quote unquote retire? Obviously, they have post career stuff, but you retire. You always think about professional athletes. My dad always used to harp on this. Yeah. What it must be to be in a life where when you hit your mid-30s or your late 30s, way earlier for running backs, of course, you're considered over the hill. And you're talking about retirement at age 40. Like, that has been what your whole life has been revolving around. And to then have to change it must be such an odd thing. So Brady will play as long as he can, which is crazy to me because he is getting too old for this stuff. But again, it's more about the way he seems to be looking at it rather than just the fact that he's getting long in the tooth. All right. Oh, man. What award are we up to? I think 9 tags? Maybe 9 at this
maybe.
Point. Whatever.
I have my sheet. I'm just going off of it. I don't have it numbered or anything.
Go to your next one.
All right. The next one, it would not be a music award day if I didn't include my favorite band of all time, Korn.
Of course.
Korn. The award is called Everything Falls Apart. And this one goes to Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, he played 4.5 games this year. In those 4.5 games, he scored just 10 fewer fantasy points than the Cowboys quarterbacks combined for in the other 11.5 games or 10.5 games. Dak Prescott accounted for 12 touchdowns in his 4.5 games. The remainder of the Cowboys quarterbacks in the other, 10-plus games, 10.5 games this season or 11.5, whatever it is, they accounted for 15 touchdowns. Everything fell apart for this Cowboys offense once he left. Amari Cooper did overcome that and remained a consistent fantasy option, but he lost that ceiling. Everything falls apart. That award goes to Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Man, I loved Prescott this year. I like Dak Prescott as a quarterback, just generally speaking. But, man, it really was something where the Cowboys, and who knows, they may win the division. You really don't know yet.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. It is crazy. But, yeah, it's a great award. And, of course, Korn, I'm surprised it took you this long, Tags.
Yeah, I had to.
Yeah, no, I figured you would. For my next award, look, if you're talking 80s movies, you've got to talk about the Maverick Pete Mitchell Award from Top Gun. His mouth writing checks, his body can't cash. He was cocky. He might have been too cocky. Then Goose dies, and it kind of derailed his career, his confidence just a little bit before he got it back at the end and was better than ever. The winner of the Pete Maverick Mitchell Award is Baker Mayfield. Cocky to a fault. We all know that. Then his guy, Odell Beckham Jr., taken out of commission. He's left kind of to do it on himself. He struggles until he finds his renewed confidence. Saves America, weeks 12 through 15. We're going to throw out this past week, man. Not fair. No wide receivers, okay? Weeks 12 through 15. Mayfield was the QB3. The QB3 for really important weeks for fantasy managers. He is your Pete Maverick Mitchell Award winner for the 2020 season, Baker Mayfield.
I dig it, man. You dug deep for this one.
I did. Let's just lay it on the table here, Tags. It's funny because I feel like we've done this at some point before. I know I've done some sort of awards, and I was like, man, 80s movies characters. It was tough. It was tough to find the right fit. But I feel like Baker Mayfield, man. I mean, that's what he is. He does remind me of Maverick. He thinks highly of himself, and for the most part, he's got it to back it up. Maybe not the top fantasy option or anything like that, but he's got the skills to back it up.
And now, after Goose died, sorry, spoiler alert.
What? Wait, what happened?
Sorry. All right, so after Goose died, which is basically Jarvis Landry missing from the lineup and him, falling flat on his face, does he come back, to join them for the squad in Week 17? To help make the playoffs.
This is what's going to be fun. Actually, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this unfolds. Tomlin strikes me as somebody who's not going to rest his players, though. They should, right? But I don't think he is going to.
I don't know. That team is beat up right now. I think it's tough. I think it's really tough. But then again, it's a divisional opponent. Do they want to let them into the playoffs? I don't know. That's a good question. All
right, we'll see. But yeah, I agree. All right, next one, Tags. What do you got?
All right, so this one's presented by the Carpenters. Carpenters have the award titled "We've Only Just Begun." This award is this player has already received an award in this show, and that is DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf, I mean, when he was drafted, we talked about his size and strength and all that stuff, and people have said, is Calvin Johnson a realistic thing, or is this a David Boston scenario? And I think he's answered those questions rather clearly. This season, 120 targets, 1,282 yards, 10 touchdowns, despite him seeing the number one cornerback on the opposing team every single week, because let's be real, David Moore is not going to get that. They're moving DK around more. He's running a more diverse route tree. There's a lot of things going on with him. And if you wanted to take him as a top, if you wanted to take him as a top 3 wide receiver next year, I do not fault you at all. I think he's going to be in the conversation for a guy that people are considering at the end of the first round, beginning of that second round, with someone like Calvin Ridley.
Tags, where did you have him? I mean, I'm sure you don't know off the top of your head, but where did you have him ranked, do you think, coming into the season? Were you optimistic that were any chance that this was possibly going to happen this year?
Well, what's funny is actually I basically just went to start the Bold Predictions article, and I was like, what did I do last year? And I wanted to see if I was correct in some of the things and what I did. And my prediction was that DK Metcalf becomes the number 1 receiver in the Seahawks offense, finishes a top 15 wide receiver.
Wow. I
said before the season that I felt, and it's really weird how this works out, I said that I felt like Tyler Lockett was probably the safer play, a guy that doesn't come with the ceiling that DK does, but he would be the safer guy. But if you're shooting for an upside play, you're that guy that wants to take that risk, I said Metcalf has a top 5 ceiling. And that came to life, and it came to life faster than I think anybody realized it could. In his second year in the league, in an offense that doesn't throw the ball a whole lot, it did help when the defense was playing like crap, and I think that's why we saw his performance maybe go down a little bit as the year went on. I don't know what happens here, but what I do know is that DK Metcalf continues to get better, and the sky is really the limit for him.
Yeah, I'm looking at my draft rankings right now, actually, and I had Lockett one spot ahead of DK Metcalf. So
I was torn on them. I don't know which one I ended up with higher, because I was saying that it depends on how you drafted. I had them both around, I think it was wide receiver 18 and 19.
Yeah, I was a little lower on both. Tyler Lockett 22nd, DK 23rd. So yeah, I didn't really see this coming, but man, it has been fun to watch. It's just really been fun to watch. All right, I'm going to finish up. It's a stretch, Tags, but I love the movie Over the Top. Are you familiar with Over the Top?
I don't.
The arm wrestling movie, Tags.
No, definitely
It's a movie where arm wrestling intersects with fatherhood, which are my 2 greatest passions in life outside of fantasy sports, of course. Tags, you got to go see it, Over the Top. I mean, it's a Sylvester Stallone 80s movie. So just to sum it up, Tags, it's basically a truck driver who's kind of down on his luck and trying to reconnect with his son. And basically his entire life rests on winning an arm wrestling contest against basically what's an invincible opponent, but that's it. And he turns down offers to sort of, his father-in-law, with whom he has an estranged relationship, Robert Loggia, tries to buy him out and say, here, just take this. And he goes, no, he's going to bet on himself. This is a little bit of a stretch, but I love this movie. Lincoln Hawk is the guy, is Sylvester Stallone's character. This one's going to be a stretch, but I was like, I have to get over the top into this because it's, a top 7 80s movie or whatever it is. So again, he's not the best arm wrestler out there. Okay, that's Bull Hurley, the champion, everything. He's not the best, and no one really thinks he's one of the top performers. And, in the middle of his run, he loses to John Grizzly, who's a guy who basically intimidates him by eating a cigar, right in front of him, right when people are counting on him. But in the end, the dude, turns down the massive offer from Robert Loggia to basically bet on himself. He takes a long shot. He bets all the money on himself, and he comes through. For me, I'm giving it to Aaron Jones. So there were questions about him coming out of the draft, and I'm looking at my draft rankings. I can't remember what his ADP was. I'll pull it up at some point. But he was basically, as far as I remember, and where I ranked him, kind of a low-end RB1 at this point, just given where there were.
His ADP, by the way, I have it pulled up right now.
Yes.
He was the RB12 and 22nd overall.
Yeah. So that's, a borderline RB1 at this point. I had him 11th. But yeah, that's where he was. He doesn't work out the contract extension, right? With the Packers. He kind of bets on himself. He's got a great run. He has that little hiccup where he loses to the cigar-eating guy, in week 14, doesn't have a great time, but he comes through in the end. Great season, over 1,000 yards rushing, double-digit touchdowns again. He's in line for a nice contract somewhere. I don't know if it's going to be with the Packers at this point based on what we saw last night, but this is my weakest one. But still, I wanted to get to Lincoln Hawk, the Lincoln Hawk Award from Over the Top, and now I'm upset that you haven't seen it, so please go watch it. Lincoln Hawk Award goes to Aaron Jones.
I like it. Thanks. I don't know the movie, so it's really rough for
me
to
to
say.
How is that possible, Tags? It's a Sylvester Stallone movie. It's about arm wrestling. That's like a movie that you and I watched together, probably. That's really what it is. It's like a movie I imagine you and I watching together and chilling after the football season. It's like, yeah, over the top. Tags, he's got a move, right? He's got a move where he shifts. If you're watching our YouTube channel, youtube.com/FantasyPros, he shifts his four fingers over and kind of puts pressure on the thumb, which definitely seems illegal, but apparently it's not, and it just allows you to totally win arm wrestling matches. It's 80s at its finest, so go watch it. Lincoln Hawk Award. Like Lincoln Hawk Award, Aaron Jones. That's right.
You're out of control, Dan.
I
gotta say that.
I've got to bring it in. Okay, Tags, that was my last one because I had 10. You've got more, right? You want to just go through a couple of whatever you got?
I got 5 more that I wanted to give out. I narrowed it down. It looks like, I'm telling you, I had so many of them. I had to narrow it down. This one was one of my favorite one, and there's actually 2 songs I could fit into this one. I'm gonna go with the Bee Gees presenting the song "How Deep Is Your Love."
Okay.
And this one is going to go to Tyler Lockett. This is the one negative award that I was talking about. Okay. Is that how deep is your love? Because how long can you sit here and continually put this guy in your starting lineup? Because I'm going to do something that highlights just how bad it was. But if you were to remove just 3 games from Tyler Lockett's season, you would look at him like a waiver wire guy right now. Yeah. You would say he's fine. You could plug him in during bye weeks and stuff like that. Get a semi decent floor, but you're not expecting miracles. Of those 3 games, one was against the Cowboys, who have been terrible against wide receivers all year, and the 2 other games were against Arizona, his divisional opponent that they clearly have a handle on. So Tyler Lockett, how deep is your love? He wins that award, and the other one I was thinking about using for an award for that one was "You Keep Me Hanging On" by the Supremes.
Yeah. I like it. Tags, I don't know about you, but one of my least favorite parts of the season was, I guess, 2, not only ranking Tyler Lockett every week, but then, based on my rankings, my projections, telling people to start Tyler Lockett every week, because it was always in that range, and people were like, I want to jump off at this point. I don't want to start him. And I was like, well, I kept moving him down, but I kept throwing out there. My love was pretty deep for Tyler Lockett. Unfortunately, it was way too deep because we should have jumped off the cliff long ago. But yeah, it was really you take out, like you mentioned, a couple of huge games, especially that one against Arizona. It was a disastrous season for Tyler
Lockett. It really was. It was bad. So he wins that award. Okay. The next award I have is from Bonnie Raitt.
Look at God, Tags. I love it. You're so all over the place with your musicians. I love it. Go ahead.
This award is called "I Can't Make You Love Me," and this one I have to give to my guy Corey Davis. Despite him being, it's almost like the opposite of Tyler Lockett, right? Where everybody wanted to continually believe that he was the guy that you continually plug in your lineup, you keep playing him, and you wind up disappointment. Whereas Corey Davis gave you every single reason to play him. I know that he finished the year on a bad note, obviously, against that game against the Packers. But, I did write these awards before that game actually even happened. But Corey Davis kept giving you a reason to play him. And it's the idea, he can't make you love him. All he can do is perform, and I really do wonder where Corey Davis is going to be next year. I don't know what team's going to sign him. I would imagine that the Tennessee Titans are going to try to re-sign him after the year he just had there, but he is an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, Corey Davis was a favorite, on our podcast, and we kept kind of saying okay, I know you don't want to do it, but you got to do it at this point because he barely disappointed. Unfortunately, Of course, as you mentioned, everybody really on the Titans had just a down game here in this Week 16 game. Apologies. There is one of our listeners' tags, one of our users, who basically asked specifically T. Higgins or Corey Davis. I said I had Corey Davis ranked higher, and he lost because of that decision. He was very nice about it on Twitter, so my bad with you. But yeah, Corey Davis, honestly, it's a great season. I do think Tags he is going to wind up with Tennessee. You agree with that?
I think that they're going to try and retain him. It would make a lot of sense for them to do that, yeah.
All right, keep going, Tags. You got a couple more. Do it.
All right. AC/DC comes out to rock and says, we're going to give out the Highway to Hell Award. The Highway to Hell Award goes to Michael Thomas. I mean, Jesus. Where do we
this is a negative award, right, Tags? I mean,
I guess it is. I didn't realize how negative I was being.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you drafted Michael Thomas, I'm sorry. I mean, if you drafted Christian McCaffrey, you can't really help the fact that he went down with an injury. That's something else. But Michael Thomas, was it due to injury? Yes. But even when he came back to the lineup, he was never the Michael Thomas that you thought you were drafting. He didn't score a touchdown all season.
Nope.
He basically never lived up, even when he was in the lineup. He never lived up to even close to the wide receiver one conversation.
Yep.
And if you drafted him, you were straight on the highway to hell because, again, you also, not only by picking him there were you put at a disadvantage because he didn't perform, but you also passed on a running back in that territory, someone like Dalvin Cook or Alvin Kamara, who was going in that territory, to select Michael Thomas. So you were on the highway to hell by selecting Michael Thomas.
Yeah, it's a good one. And again, the big thing with Thomas and the difference with McCaffrey is that when McCaffrey first got hurt, you kind of assumed maybe he'll come back earlier, but the initial timetable was 4 to 6 weeks. And then you never really heard anything about him, that he was going to be able to come back. He came back for that one game. He performed really well. And then he got hurt, and you kind of knew what you were dealing with at this point. Thomas was weird. The injury, they didn't expect to keep him out they didn't know how long it would keep him out. Then he was out for a while. When he came back, he had a couple of decent games, but as you pointed out, 0 touchdowns on the season. And for the most part, when you started him, you weren't exactly bowled over. You didn't get those great performances like you did from McCaffrey when he was out there. So that's a good award. What's your next one?
All right. So the next one, I had to find who the originator was. So it's Ben E. King is the originator of the song Stand By Me.
Mm-hmm.
The Stand By Me award is actually, there's 2 winners for this award, and is David Montgomery and Jonathan Taylor.
Yes.
2 guys that, there was definitely some hiccups early in the season. I'd say more so with Jonathan Taylor, where people were actually dropping him in fantasy leagues. David Montgomery was on rosters, not someone that everybody wanted to start it every single week. But if you stood by these guys and you said, I'm going to remain loyal, and if you got to the fantasy playoffs, these guys probably carried you to a fantasy championship. I mean, David Montgomery was fantastic. Taylor was fantastic. Both of them wound up finishing as top 8 running backs in the season, despite their somewhat slow starts. So it just goes to show you just how good their end of season was. So I think they're both deserving of the Stand By Me awards.
I love it. Yeah, as soon as you said Stand By Me, and I was like, all right, I know where you're going with this, because they're going to wind up, again, for the fantasy playoffs especially, they'll be top 4, both of them. We talked about Taylor yesterday in my bold prediction, but because of Alvin Kamara scoring 35 touchdowns in the last game, he's going to surpass him. But what's great about it, Tags, is we do our best to predict the future in terms of football performance, right? We do our best, but it's great that this worked out the way it was supposed to work out, right?
Yeah.
With Jonathan Taylor and Dave Montgomery, and we were sort of like, look, with that playoff schedule, here's what you've got. And it worked out exactly that. They both came through big time. So, Stand By Me award, fantastic award for both those guys. What do you got, 1 or 2 others?
I got the last one, and I saved this one because it's my favorite award. And the person that actually got nominated for this award is... he deserves to be in this conversation. I'm surprised he hasn't gotten an award yet, but I'm so glad that I saved this one for last because it is Metallica coming to represent the Enter Sandman Award. This is like legit my MVP award that I'm giving away. Enter Sandman, Devante Adams. I mean, basically when Devante Adams enters the matchup against you, just leave the room.
Yeah.
Because he's going to kill you. When he was in the lineup, you were just dead in the water. There was not much you can do. If he had played every single game this season, people would be talking more about like what he's been able to accomplish because he has a chance to break Packer records despite the fact that he missed a couple games, which again, it's so unbelievably crazy considering knowing how long the Packers franchise has been around, the players that have been in it, the quarterbacks that have played there, everything going into it. But Devante Adams is like good Knight enter Sandman award.
Just an incredible season and watching him yesterday, man, on that where whatever, I think Collinsworth said something about like the MVP award goes to his shoes or something because he just was able to cut and just guys go flying. I agree. So that's sort of your MVP award. I've got no issues whatsoever with that. My MVP award, to the extent we're giving those out, would go to Kelsey, and it's really because of the difference that he had in his position. I've got no problem with Adams because of how absolutely preposterously dominant Adams was. But for Kelsey, for me, is a guy who, again, you got in the second round, and there were a lot of managers. We talked about it with Yates. Yates was just like, I don't want to take the tight end. And I get that, by the way, because I do always think that when I look at my team, just from an optical perspective, my teams don't look as good when I take the early tight ends. It's just optics, though. So I think fantasy managers go in there and they're like, I don't know, I'm so weak at wide receiver 3 or whatever it is. So they don't love to take that tight end early because you can wait till the last round and get, a top 12 tight end or whatever you're doing. But for me, Travis Kelce, just with the enormous advantage he gave you over that position, the fact that he never let you down ever, the fact that he was basically a top 3 wide receiver on the season, he wins my quote-unquote MVP award. But that's going to be yours. I've got no problem with that.
Well, I was looking at that, and Travis Kelce is the number 4 value-based drafting. So if you were to legit draft perfectly, and you were to say every single player, exactly how to value them, Kelce was the number 4 value-based drafted player this year, which is just, for a tight end, is so remarkable. So for him winning the fantasy MVP, I have no issue with that. I also wanted to say that the Enter Sandman award was for Devante Adams. That's the best award I can give. But at the same time, if we're talking about the clear-cut fantasy MVP because he was there all season for you, I think it has to be Dalvin Cook. If you were drafting today, knowing what we know about everything, Dalvin Cook's the number 1 pick, right? Based on what we saw this year. Now Christian McCaffrey's going to come back and then he'll be there. But in terms of this year, Alvin Kamara turned out to be the number 1 VBD player, but I don't think he was as consistent as Cook, which is why I think Cook deserves that award as best fantasy player, or most valuable, I should say, because he was there for you every single week, just putting up 20-point performances almost every single game. I mean, there were just 2 games all season where he finished with fewer than 15 half PPR points, which is that doesn't happen. So I think Dalvin Cook should be the fantasy MVP.
Yeah, I've got no issue with it whatsoever. And again, it depends on however you want to define MVP, which realistically, it is different for every voter in real life and in all sports. So for me, it's sort of a guy who, again, Kelsey, where you were able to get him and what the advantage did. But I have no problem with Adams. I have no problem with Dalvin Cook whatsoever. So those are our MVPs. How about Rookie of the Year award? I mean, tags, realistically, there's no real argument about this one, right?
No, there's not. When you have a rookie that finishes as the number 4 running back, I mean, it's James Robinson.
Yeah, it's James Robinson, who, again, it's really just nuts, given the fact that, how long did it take fantasy managers? I remember basically harping on the James Robinson is an RB1 and you need to accept this fact, and fantasy managers still couldn't. Whether it was because they had never heard his name before the season, that's tough to shake. But if you changed the name on that jersey, people would have bought into him much earlier. A remarkable season from Robinson here. All right, how about, look, your waiver wire darling realistically should probably be James Robinson too, right? Don't you think?
Well, it should, but at the same time, if you look at ADP, he was actually drafted right in the 16th round. So it was almost borderline where he was drafted in some leagues, he wasn't in others. So I feel like we should do the award for this one, saying it's someone who is clearly available on waiver wires in 90% of leagues. I don't think James Robinson fits that.
All right, so who do you got?
I am going to go. This one was really tough because it just depends at different times of the year. I'm going to go with T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins was my waiver wire darling. Mike Davis deserves a special shout.
Mike Davis is my winner, just to be clear. But yes, go ahead.
He deserves a special shout out. But he did fall off as the year went on, and that was his own fault, I think. Whereas T. Higgins, the part where he dropped off was because his starting quarterback, obviously took a fall. But Higgins did pick it up in week 16, if you were able to start him there. But he basically came in and did everything that I thought A.J. Green should have done in that offense, and became someone that, if Joe Burrow can come back and be healthy this year in 2021, which it's really tricky because he had multiple ligament tears. That's problematic, and I don't know if he's going to be ready for week 1. But if we knew Joe Burrow was healthy and back in the lineup, I'd say T. Higgins, as a bold prediction, is going to be a top 10 wide receiver. I don't even know if that's is bold. I think it's bold when you hear it out loud, but when you actually break down the numbers from when Burrow was the quarterback and T. Higgins became a starter, he basically was a top 12 wide receiver. Yeah. So I put him as my waiver wire darling.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. And I think that you're right. When you say T. Higgins is a wide receiver 1 or a top 10 or whatever, it does seem bold. But when you really think about it and you look at his numbers and you think about what things are going to look like last week, I mean, it's higher. I don't think he's actually going to rank, or I'm not going to rank him as a wide receiver 1 or a top 10, but he's not going to be that far outside of that. So I think that's a great one. For me, it was Davis. Again, Davis was a guy who I think it was I think Scott Fishbowl, like a league that deep where he wasn't even drafted. And I remember I just had an extra roster spot, and this is before McCaffrey got injured, and I was just like, well, might as well pick up Mike Davis. Who knows? If CMC goes down, like, it could be something. And then Mike Davis turned out to be a guy who you were starting each and every week without fail. And yeah, he fell off towards the end of the season, but if you held him the whole year over the last few weeks, you had him the 2-touchdown performance against Denver. He didn't really come through against Green Bay. That's fine. But even last week, this week, I guess, against Washington, he still scored a touchdown. He was a guy you just sort of threw out there each and every week. And he never really had like the fully disastrous performance or anything like that. And the guy was just available everywhere. And especially for CMC owners, really saved their bacon. He's the guy who wins the waiver wire darling award.
Yeah, if you had McCaffrey and you didn't get Mike Davis, you were probably screwed, to be honest, because there weren't too many running backs that you could find on the waiver wire that you could start every single week. So it's definitely someone that I thought about for that award for sure. It just, I think it was late in the season. We just saw him wear down a bit, and he wasn't as valuable. But I did, by the way, just while we were talking here, I did look up from weeks 3 through 10, which is an 8-week stretch, so half the season, when T. Higgins was a starter and Joe Burrow was the quarterback, T. Higgins was the wide receiver 11.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, now this is why I haven't dug into my my 2021 rankings just yet, because I do need to get into that. All right, Tags. This was fun. Did you have fun, my friend?
I always have fun with this show, man. I got to talk about music. I got to talk about football. I got to talk with my best friend, Dan.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. See, this is not even behind your back, Yates. All right, we're saying it. We know you're going to be listening to this. You're going to be complaining about it. Now you know. It's been decided officially. Okay, we're going to be doing some more. We're still going to be doing DFS every single week, so don't worry about that. We will be back doing a fun, perfect draft podcast where, as Tags mentioned, we're going to look back. We're going to see how it looks when you try to recreate sort of the season, knowing what you know now. All that good stuff. Stick with us. Stay subscribed. And again, don't forget to enter our contest to win a signed James Robinson helmet. Leave a review for the show on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher. And then go to fantasypros.com/contest. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Looking for useful content, fantasy relevant information, and the data that's going to help your team win? Then go ahead and subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. And while you're at it, give us a follow over on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Fantasy Pros, so you can dominate all your leagues.